The bright afternoon sky above Seoul darkened as the massive ship blocked the sun. For 3 days, the vessel had hovered silently, making no contact. World leaders scrambled for answers while citizens watched in fear and wonder. Tae-hyun wiped sweat from his brow as he finished welding the steel beam. Construction hadn't stopped despite the alien presence. Buildings still needed to be built, even at the end of the world. He glanced up at the ship again, its metallic surface reflecting sunlight in patterns that hurt his eyes. "Kim, back to work!" his supervisor shouted. Tae-hyun nodded and lowered his welding mask again. Just as the blue flame sparked to life, every electronic device within a kilometer radius died. His welder went silent. Car alarms stopped. Phones displayed no signal. Then came the voice. "People of Earth, we come in peace." The words didn't come from speakers. They simply appeared in everyone's mind, somehow perfectly understandable regardless of native language. 2 days later, Tae-hyun found himself among 20 humans selected to meet the aliens face-to-face. Why they had chosen a regular construction worker alongside scientists and government officials, he couldn't understand. The meeting room smelled like cinnamon and salt. 5 beings entered, each unique in appearance. The apparent leader stepped forward, a tall creature with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were wide-set and dark, showing no whites. "I am Nola, representative of the Galactic Council," it said. "We have observed your world for many cycles. You are the first intelligent life we have discovered from a Class 5 planet." Professor Han, an astrophysicist standing near Tae-hyun, gasped. "Class 5? What you might call a death world," explained another alien with feather-like growths covering its body. "Your gravity is crushing, your atmosphere is corrosive, your temperature variations would kill most council species within minutes. Your indigenous life forms are exceptionally aggressive." Tae-hyun looked around the room. Earth seemed perfectly normal to him, even pleasant in many regions. "Your species interests us greatly," Nola continued. "You have survived conditions that would destroy most civilizations. We propose a cultural exchange program." The offer was simple. Humans would join alien crews to share knowledge and skills. In return, Earth would receive advanced technology and membership in the Galactic Council, as in Dai. Discussions continued. Tae-hyun felt increasingly out of place among scientists and diplomats. During a break, he approached Nola. "Why am I here?" he asked directly. "I'm just a builder." Nola's head tilted slightly. "That is precisely why you are here, Tae-hyun Kim. Your species builds physical structures with your own hands. Most council races abandoned such practices millennia ago." 3 weeks later, after rushed training sessions on alien cultures and basic space travel, Tae-hyun found himself boarding a transport ship. His family had been shocked but proud when he volunteered for the first exchange group. The ship was unlike anything humans had designed, organic-looking and flowing with soft curves instead of hard angles. His quarters felt strangely alive, adjusting temperature and lighting automatically to his comfort levels. "Human Tae-hyun," came a voice from the wall. It was Duri, a tall insectoid being who would be his supervisor. "We will arrive at Central Hub in 2-day cycles. You have been assigned basic infrastructure assistance." "What does that involve?" Tae-hyun asked. "Simple tasks to help you adjust to galactic society," Duri explained. "Nothing challenging. We understand your species needs time to adapt to advanced concepts." The condescension was clear, but Tae-hyun didn't mind. He was traveling through space to an alien world. Everything else was minor details. When they arrived at Central Hub, Tae-hyun stared in awe at the massive ring-shaped structure orbiting a small red star. Thousands of ships moved in perfect coordination around docking stations. "Impressive, yes?" asked Maru, another human volunteer standing beside him. "They've had 10,000 years longer than us to build." Tae-hyun nodded. "I wonder what basic infrastructure assistance means to beings who built this." The answer came the next day, when Tae-hyun was shuttled to the surface of the nearby moon. A construction project sprawled across the rocky landscape, what appeared to be the beginning of a massive foundation. Duri greeted him with what Tae-hyun had learned was the insectoid equivalent of a smile. A slight vibration of her antennae. "Human, Taehyun, welcome. We have assigned you what we believe is a suitably simple task for your skills level. Nothing too complex for a Deathworlder's first assignment. Taehyun looked at the project plans displayed on the floating screen before him. Despite the alien text, he immediately recognized the problem they were facing. It was basic physics and engineering. He smiled. Perhaps being a Deathworlder had advantages they hadn't expected. Taehyun stood at the edge of the massive construction site, squinting against the orange light of the alien sun. Around him, dozens of beings from various species huddled around floating display screens, making agitated gestures and sounds that his translator struggled to keep up with. The site itself was strange, rocky terrain similar to a desert stretching for kilometers in all directions. Large metallic segments lay scattered across one end of the site, each the size of a small house. In the distance, a deep foundation pit had been dug, but nothing was happening there. Human Taehyun? Duri approached, her insect-like mandibles clicking with what he had learned was frustration. You have arrived at a fortuitous time. We face a significant engineering problem. Taehyun nodded politely. I'm ready to help however I can. These foundation segments, Duri gestured toward the massive metallic pieces, must be transported across this terrain to the build site. However, the ground composition is unstable silicate with low-density support capability. Taehyun looked at the ground. It seemed like loose shale or gravel, not ideal for heavy transport but nothing particularly challenging. How far do they need to go? He asked. Approximately 1 kilo distance, Duri replied. Our best engineers have been attempting solutions for 16-day cycles without success. Taehyun scratched his head. And what methods have you tried? Duri led him to a display showing various simulations. Most involved complex anti-gravity units that kept failing when the unstable ground shifted. Our gravitic compensators cannot maintain calibration over such unreliable terrain, explained another alien, this one tall and thin with pale blue skin. I am Juno, lead engineer. Each time we attempt transport, the shifting ground causes harmonic resonance in our field generators. Taehyun walked over to the nearest foundation segment and placed his hand on it. Heavy, but nothing extraordinary. By Earth standards, he picked up a handful of the gravel-like surface material and let it sift through his fingers. How long has this project been delayed? He asked. 41 day cycles. Duri's antennae drooped slightly. The council grows impatient. Taehyun looked around at the gathered engineers, beings from across the galaxy with technology far beyond Earth's capabilities, all stumped by what seemed to him like a basic logistics problem. I think I might have a solution, he said carefully. The gathered aliens turned to him with expressions that his cultural training identified as skepticism. With respect, human Taehyun, Juno said, this problem has challenged our greatest minds. Perhaps observe for several days before suggesting approaches. Taehyun smiled. On Earth, we move heavy objects across unstable terrain all the time. We don't have anti-gravity technology, so we developed other methods. A crowd began to gather as Taehyun kneeled down and started drawing in the soil with his finger. First, we need to distribute the weight, he explained, sketching a simple platform design. Then reduce friction between the platform and the ground. We can create a pathway with compacted material to stabilize the route. Duri's compound eyes seemed to narrow. You suggest physical manipulation of the environment without computational assistance? Yes, Taehyun said. Simple physics. We'll need some flat materials for the platform, something for runners on the bottom and teams to pull. Pull? Asked a small tentacled being at the edge of the gathering crowd. With what? With ropes, Taehyun replied. Or cables, whatever you have that's strong enough. The crowd grew larger as word spread about the Deathworlder's strange suggestion. Soon high-ranking officials had arrived from nearby facilities to witness the spectacle. You intend to move these segments using physical force? Asked an elegant being with crystalline features who had been introduced as a council representative. Without gravitic assistance? Yes, Taehyun said, growing uncomfortable with the attention. It's how we do it on Earth. After much discussion and many doubtful comments, Taehyun was given permission to demonstrate his approach. Materials were gathered, though not exactly what he would have chosen. The aliens watched with fascination as he constructed a simple sledge system with distributed load-bearing points. By the end of the day, Taehyun had built a primitive but effective transport system using principles of weight distribution, friction, reduction and leverage, concepts taught in basic engineering courses on Earth. "We will need volunteers to help pull," he explained to the skeptical crowd. Most species declined, citing the dangerous conditions, though to Taehyun, the temperature and gravity felt perfectly comfortable. "I will assist," Dory finally volunteered, though her posture suggested she expected failure. As night fell on the alien moon, Taehyun looked at his handiwork with satisfaction. Tomorrow would be the true test, when he would show these advanced beings that sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. Word had spread quickly through the site about the primitive Deathworlder's strange approach. Tomorrow's demonstration would have an audience. The morning brought a crowd larger than Taehyun had expected. Aliens of all shapes and sizes gathered at a safe distance from the construction site. Some held devices that Taehyun guessed were for recording. Others whispered to each other while pointing at his makeshift sledge system. "Are we truly allowing this?" asked Juno, the tall blue engineer, as he approached Dury. "The Council Scientific Division has sent observers. If this fails, it will reflect poorly on our entire operation." Dury's antennae twitched nervously. The human insisted his method would work. I thought it best to let him demonstrate rather than argue. Taehyun checked the sledge one last time. He had used local materials to create a wide platform with curved runners underneath. The surface of the runners had been polished to reduce friction. He had also packed and flattened a path through the loose gravel, creating a more stable route to the foundation pit. "I need more helpers," Taehyun called out. "At least 6 strong workers." The crowd shuffled uncomfortably. Finally, 2 burly aliens with thick limbs stepped forward. They resembled earth bears walking upright, though their fur was a deep purple color. "We will assist," one rumbled through the translator. "Our species has greater strength than most council races." Taehyun smiled gratefully. "Thank you. Anyone else?" After some hesitation, 3 more aliens of various species volunteered, along with another human from the exchange program named Jiho who had arrived that morning. "I heard a fellow Earthling was making waves," Jiho grinned, offering his hand. "Couldn't miss the show." Taehyun showed his team how to position themselves around the sledge and how to pull together on his signal. The first foundation segment had already been loaded onto the platform using a combination of levers and ramps, another display of primitive technology that had amazed the watching aliens. "Ready?" Taehyun called. The team took up their positions, gripping the thick cables attached to the sledge. "Pull on my count. 1, 2, 3. They heaved together. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low scraping sound, the sledge began to move. The crowd gasped as the massive foundation segment, weighing what Taehyun estimated to be around 30 tons, slowly inched forward. "Keep going," Taehyun encouraged. "Steady pace." Foot by foot, the sledge moved along the prepared path. Taehyun walked alongside, occasionally placing rollers in front of the runners to further reduce friction. When they reached a slight incline, he showed them how to use leverage to keep the momentum going. A council scientist pushed forward through the crowd, recording everything with a small floating device. "Remarkable," she muttered. "The Deathworlder is using pure mechanical advantage. No field generators, no gravitic assistance, not even basic propulsion systems." 2 hours later, they had moved the first segment halfway to the foundation pit. The team paused for a break and Taehyun handed out water bottles. "I don't understand," Dury said, approaching Taehyun. "Your method is effective, but extremely labor-intensive. Why would you choose this approach when technology could do it? For you?" Taehyun wiped sweat from his forehead. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the most reliable. Your gravity devices kept failing because they couldn't adapt to the changing ground. This method works with the environment, not against it." By midday, 3 shuttlecraft had arrived, bringing even more observers. Taehyun recognized some of them as high-ranking council officials from their elaborate clothing. The pressure was mounting, but he remained focused on the task. "Ready for the second half?" he asked his team. They nodded, looking tired but determined. The two bear-like aliens seemed especially impressed by the progress. "Our ancestors moved stones this way," one of them told Taehyun quietly. "Before we joined the council and adopted their technology, I had forgotten these methods." The second half of the journey proved more challenging as they approached the steeper grade near the foundation pit. Taehyun showed them how to use block and tackle systems to multiply their pulling force. He positioned team members at strategic points to guide the sledge and prevent it from slipping sideways. "Almost there," Taehyun called out, his voice strained from exertion. With one final coordinated pull, the sledge slid into perfect position at the edge of the foundation pit. The crowd erupted in sounds that Taehyun's translator interpreted as applause and amazement. Duri approached, her mandibles clicking rapidly. "You have transported in one day what our engineers could not move in 41 days. How is this possible?" Taehyun smiled, wiping his hands on his pants. "This is basic knowledge on Earth. We learn physics principles early in school, and we apply them every day in construction." The council scientist who had been recording pushed forward. "Human Taehyun, would you be willing to demonstrate this method for the remaining segments as well? The scientific division wishes to document your approach in detail." Taehyun looked at the sun hanging low in the alien sky. He was tired but satisfied. "Of course, we can move the next one tomorrow." As the crowd dispersed, discussing the day's events in excited tones, Taehyun sat on a rock and took a long drink of water. Jiho sat beside him. "You know," Jiho said quietly, "you just changed how the entire galaxy sees humans." Taehyun nodded. Not bad for a simple builder from Seoul. News of Taehyun's success spread quickly through the central hub. By the next morning, the construction site was surrounded by hundreds of observers from across the galaxy. Special viewing platforms had been hastily constructed overnight, and several council members had arrived in ornate shuttlecraft. "This is unexpected," Taehyun said to Jiho as they surveyed the crowd. "You're a celebrity now," Jiho laughed. "The Deathworlder who solved the unsolvable problem with sticks and stones." Duri approached them, followed by a tall, elegant alien with shimmering gold skin. "Human Taehyun, this is High Counselor Pari. She oversees all major construction projects in this sector." Taehyun bowed respectfully. "It's an honor to meet you." "The honor is mine," Pari replied. Her voice had a musical quality that the translator couldn't fully capture. "Your demonstration yesterday has caused quite a stir in council chambers. Many refused to believe the reports until they saw the recordings." "It was nothing special," Taehyun said. "Just basic physics." "That is precisely what makes it remarkable," Pari said. "What you consider basic, we had forgotten. Or perhaps never knew." She gestured to the remaining foundation segments. "Today's demonstration will be broadcast throughout council space. Are you prepared?" Taehyun nodded, though his stomach tightened at the thought of so many eyes watching him. "We'll need more volunteers today if we want to move multiple segments." "That will not be a problem," Perry assured him. She was right. When Taehyun called for helpers, dozens of aliens stepped forward eagerly. Even species that had previously declined due to the harsh conditions now volunteered, curious to experience the Deathworlder's methods firsthand. Taehyun divided them into teams, assigning each group to a sledge. He showed them how to position themselves, how to pull in unison, and how to manage the guides and rollers. Some caught on quickly, while others struggled with the physical nature of the work. "Remember," he instructed, "it's not about individual strength. It's about coordinated effort. Pull together, on my signal." A hush fell over the crowd as Taehyun raised his hand. Even the council members leaned forward in anticipation. 1, 2, 3. Pull! The teams strained against their cables. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, simultaneously, all 4 sledges began to move. A sound like thunder rolled across the site as the audience erupted in amazement. "Keep going," Taehyun shouted, moving. between the teams. Steady pace. The procession of sledges moved slowly but steadily along the prepared pathways. Taehyun had refined his method overnight, adding more rollers and creating smoother transitions over the difficult terrain. When they reached the steeper sections, he demonstrated how to use simple pulleys to multiply their force. "Remarkable," murmured an alien scientist recording the event. "They're using pure mechanical advantage to overcome gravitational resistance. No technology at all." By midday, all 4 segments had reached the halfway point. The teams rested while Taehyun explained his methods to the gathered officials. "The key is working with the environment, not against it," he said, drawing diagrams in the soil. "We distribute the weight, reduce friction, and apply force at the optimal angles." "But the physical exertion," protested one council member. "It seems primitive." "Sometimes primitive works better than advanced," Taehyun replied. "Your gravity devices kept failing because they couldn't adapt to the changing ground. This method can adjust instantly because we can see and feel the changes." After the break, the teams returned to their positions with renewed enthusiasm. Even some of the council members had removed their formal robes and joined the effort, eager to experience the Deathworlder's methods firsthand. "Final stretch," Taehyun called out. "Remember what I showed you about the incline?" The sledges moved up the gentle slope toward the foundation pit. When they reached the steepest section, Taehyun's team demonstrated how to use block and tackle systems to multiply their pulling force. The crowd gasped as the massive segment seemed to float upward, guided by nothing more than ropes and pulleys. "Physics," Taehyun explained to a nearby council scientist. "The same principles that built the pyramids on Earth thousands of years ago." As the sun began to set, the final segment slid into position at the edge of the foundation pit. The teams cheered, embracing each other regardless of species. Many of the aliens were visibly exhausted but grinning with satisfaction. High Counselor Pari approached Taehyun as the celebration continued around them. "In one day," she said, her voice filled with wonder, "you have accomplished what our finest engineers could not do in 41 days. And you did it with technology we would consider ancient." Taehyun shrugged. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." "The council will need to reconsider many things," Perry said thoughtfully, "including our assessment of Deathworld species. What other knowledge might you possess that we have overlooked?" As darkness fell, the construction site glowed with the lights of celebration. Taehyun stood at the edge of the foundation pit, looking at the perfectly positioned segments. Tomorrow they would begin the actual construction. Another opportunity to show what a human from Earth could do. "Not bad," Jiho said, joining him. "You've just changed how the entire galaxy sees humans." Taehyun smiled. "We're just getting started." 3 months after the sledge demonstration, Taehyun stood before the Galactic Council in their grand chamber. The circular room housed representatives from 17 sentient species, all seated in tiers that rose like a giant bowl. At the center stood a simple platform where speakers addressed the assembly. Taehyun wore his regular work clothes, sturdy pants and a simple shirt with his name patch. The council had suggested formal attire, but he had politely declined. He was a builder, not a politician. "Human Taehyun," announced High Counselor Pari, her golden skin catching the light. "You stand before us as a representative of Earth. Your work has transformed our understanding of Deathworld species." Taehyun bowed slightly. The translator pinned to his shirt conveyed his words to everyone in the chamber. "Thank you, High Counselor. I am honored to be here. In the 3 months since your demonstration, human methods have been applied to 15 major construction projects across Council space," Perry continued. "Projects that were stalled for years have been completed in weeks." The screens around the chamber displayed images of construction sites where humans now worked alongside aliens, teaching them primitive techniques that somehow surpassed advanced technology in certain situations. "We wish to formally change the classification of Earth from Class 5 Deathworld to Resilient World Alpha," Pari announced. "This new designation acknowledges that your harsh conditions bred not just survival skills but innovation we had never considered." The council members made sounds of agreement. Some tapped their appendages on their desks in what Taehyun had learned was their form of applause. Furthermore, Pari continued, we wish to establish a formal Earth knowledge exchange program. 100 humans will be invited to teach what you call basic skills across various fields. After the ceremony, Taehyun met with a group of newly arrived humans in a large teaching space on Central Hub. 20 aliens from various species sat alongside them, eager to learn. Welcome to what we're calling Earth Basics, Taehyun said. My name is Taehyun Kim. 3 months ago I was just a construction worker from Seoul. Now apparently I'm a professor. The room laughed. Taehyun had grown comfortable speaking to groups since his demonstration had made him something of a celebrity. Today we'll start with simple machines. Levers, pulleys, inclined planes, wheels, and how they work together. These tools built human civilization long before we had computers or electricity. As Taehyun demonstrated a simple block and tackle system, lifting a heavy object with minimal effort, he noticed the aliens watching with complete fascination. What seemed obvious to the humans was revolutionary to species that had developed anti-gravity technology before they had fully explored mechanical physics. The council engineers approached problems by trying to counter gravity, Taehyun explained. We learned to work with gravity, to redirect forces rather than oppose them directly. During the lunch break, Taehyun sat with Duri, who had become a close friend over the past months. The council has approved your suggestion, Duri said, her mandibles clicking with excitement. Future space stations will incorporate physical backup systems based on your designs. Taehyun nodded. After learning about council technology, he had been shocked to discover their over-reliance on a single approach. Their stations had no mechanical backups. If power failed, everything failed. I'm glad they listened. Redundancy is essential for safety. Redundancy was considered inefficient, Duri explained, until you showed us how inefficient systems can save lives when primary systems fail. That evening, Taehyun stood at the observation deck of Central Hub, watching the stars. Earth was too distant to see, but he knew its general direction. Jiho joined him, carrying 2 cups of a blue drink that approximated coffee. Have you heard the latest? Jiho asked. They're sending council engineers to Earth to study our primitive infrastructure. Apparently our subways and bridges are engineering marvels by their standards. Taehyun laughed. Wait until they see how we build skyscrapers. The funniest part is that they're most impressed by our oldest buildings, Jiho added. They can't figure out how we built the pyramids or Roman aqueducts with Stone Age technology. A soft chime indicated an incoming message on Taehyun's communicator. It was from the Earth delegation. They want me to lead the new engineering exchange program, Taehyun said, reading the message. 50 human engineers teaching basic principles across council space. Will you accept? Jiho asked. Taehyun looked out at the stars again, thinking of how far he had come. 6 months ago, he had been welding steel beams in Seoul, watching an alien ship darken the sky. Now he was helping reshape how an entire galactic civilization thought about engineering. Yes, he said finally. But I want to visit home first. My mother won't believe any of this without seeing pictures. As they turned to leave, a group of young aliens approached timidly. One stepped forward, a small tentacled being with large eyes. Teacher Taehyun, it said hesitantly. We wondered, if you might show us more about these pulleys tomorrow? We have been practicing but cannot achieve the proper tension. Taehyun smiled. Of course. Meet me in the workshop after breakfast. As the aliens thanked him and hurried away, Taehyun felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had come to learn from advanced civilizations, but instead found that humanity had its own valuable knowledge to share. Sometimes the most basic skills from one world could change everything.